Stimulate your mind.
Get up, junkie! What have we got here? A fucking comedian.
Rogan Kim.
California dreaming.
Yeah, and so I just talk about whatever, just like talking now. And man, the whole idea that we're all just these like profiles, you know what I mean? Like as human beings, we're essentially reduced down to these, I don't know, these little sort of boxes that we got a little picture in there, we have a little description, and then we say like, here's some stuff I like, and here's some things, you know, and that's us.
It's
you know?
a catalog. It's like
yeah.
a catalog of it's our catalog page, our product page. It's our profile picture. Here are the stats. Here's the dimensions of the product. Here's the size and the color, and these are the options, and this is its earning potential, and so on. It has all these little things that you would associate with a product if you were to go to Amazon. It gives you all that kind of stuff, and then you're on a dating site. Now you're comparison shopping.
Right. So it is ultimately like commodification. Like it's really
absolutely
every single person is now a discrete unit, purchasable unit.
Yeah.
And that purchase is love, I guess.
And now your ability to market yourself now becomes really important.
Right. Yes.
You know, I have to write this description about myself, but I got to seem witty, but not too much. I got a serious side. It you know, it comes down to now your hustle, so to speak, is now inside your life. You know?
Oh man. I mean that's your representation.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily you,
yeah.
right? Because you could be changing at any given moment,
right.
But you still need to put out a good sort of representation. You know, it's a good ad. Like everything is now a good. Everything is all. That's what everything is, isn't it? Now
yes.
Everything is just marketing. I feel like if anything, our country has always been good at, and is still to this day good at. Bullshitting, like just marketing.
Oh, yes.
I mean, bullshit in all its aspects. So marketing
yeah.
is sort of the commodification of bullshitting, but then also like in politics, the bullshit. You know, like our bullshit is still top notch. We are still the number one producers of bullshit. Like I saw this.
We'll never lose that. We'll never lose that title.
Well, I think it comes down to there's this George Carlin joke about how America is a country founded by slave owners who wanted to be free. Right? There's an inherent contradiction, right? Just the whole concept of America in and of itself is there's a lot of promise in it, but it's also a total lie.
Oh yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
It's both one and the same. So
and we keep that tradition alive on these profiles now. Is it's the same thing as like if you want to hide your body, your pictures are all close.
Right.
That's that kind of that thing now. You know what I mean? You're keeping up the bullshit.
Right.
And you're manipulating the images to make yourself look better. And then the problem is that, and which happens in business as well, where if you bullshit about a product and then somebody buys it and then it shows up on your doorstep and it's broken or it didn't work or it wasn't advertised or whatever. You're kind of pissed off. And I think that kind of happens when you're like dating, when you meet somebody and they pull that bullshit and then they show up and, you look at them and like, you're not even close to what you said you were.
It's like a bait and switch.
Yeah. It's like and so now it's like, and so now, that is exactly the process that you go through in business, in manufacturing products and selling products to the marketplace. So it's the same thing now with dating.
Well, there you go. And I think it's also there's something just to be said about the level of confidence that we have as a country in order to sustain this. You know what I mean? There's that, because I think I saw this study that said that they took groups of students from around the world and had them answer two sort of sets of questions. And the first set of question was just about how confident they were that they were going to score the highest on the test. And then the second set of questions was the test, and Americans consistently scored the highest on the confidence part, but
lowest,
like 26th, like essentially pretty like way down below, like, you know what I mean? So it's just a lot of confident dummies. Like that's what we
Right.
are. Like we're very.
But a lot of confident dummies have done some kind of cool shit.
Well, hey,
You know, I
yeah,
mean-
nothing can get done. You can still get dumb people to do stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's the confidence that matters. Yeah,
Right.
You gotta have the will, and that's really what it comes down to. But yeah, that is actually interesting. I never thought about like this idea that we are essentially products now. Now we're such a package as our own products.
And look, and we even got it now to where some people are making money off of their profile, so to speak. You know, you got influencers now
Right.
that, you know, I had a conversation today with somebody that contacted me and they wanted me to help them monetize their social media. And, you know, they had, you know, a couple 100,000 followers and they felt like they could leverage that and so on. And her and I had a conversation about that. And that's now these profiles are now have a value, have an actual monetary value.
So what is the okay? If somebody, at what point is it like, how many followers does somebody need on Instagram to be like, hey, I could make money off this now? Like, is there a certain number?
I don't think so. I mean, I read an article recently that said that somebody was making a case for using micro influencers, people that had like less than 5,000 followers, but they were like highly engaged followers, and you could get them for like just the cost of your product.
Okay.
You say like, I'm going to send you, here's my new product or whatever. They, you know, and so there was a case made for that, and that has a value. If you can give free products, hey, if I can get a free waffle maker, you know,
So-
go ahead.
Okay,
Send
so
it to me.
it's essentially now people just shilling for companies just in exchange for free products. Like,
No, but I mean, here's
mean-
the thing. But if you are somebody that is a big, you know, that has millions of followers,
Right.
that's monetized in a completely different way because they are, you know, they're doing product placements. They are just simply wearing your product, you know, and getting a
Right.
picture taken is
so that's the advertising.
that's the advertising
the
and
value.
and they're actually giving they're giving big time money for that.
Right.
You know, a lot of money, astronomical amounts of money, but it can have tremendous impact on a company if the product can take off.
I mean, so essentially, that means all of it could just be like everything on social media could literally just be a secret ad.
It all is
I
a
mean, it's
secret
essentially
ad,
all
yeah.
of it is. I mean, because not only are you talking about the behaviors of advertisers, you know, changing the way people create content because they're paying them off in some way, but you also have these algorithms that are kind of watching how we behave, and then everything is kind of shaping
Sure.
itself to our behavior and shaping our behaviors to feed back on the algorithm itself. So we have this essentially, but the main value here, because the algorithm is amoral, right? It doesn't really care one way.
No.
You just program it, and it just does what you
It's
tell
doing-
it.
it's doing what it was told to do.
Yeah. So there's no. It's not the algorithm's fault. It's really the feedback mechanism of the people, how we behave, and then how they
Right.
exploit that. They're
Right.
like, oh, you guys.
It's like when you see those people that complain that remember back in the day when people used to complain that porn ads kept on popping up
Yeah.
all over the place,
Yeah.
and it's like that's based on your behavior, pal.
Yeah,
You've
that's
been
'cause-
visiting porn sites,
Yeah, and you
know
keep
that's how
clicking
it's-
on them.
Yeah,
They know
exactly.
you click on this.
It's like it's like
It's
yeah,
like-
those things are tailored to advertise to you.
Right.
They you know, the social media, Instagram itself, you know, they need your eyeballs on the screen so that they can deliver up ads because then they can sell that. That's what they're selling. They're selling the time. They're selling the eyeballs.
The eyeballs.
And so, yeah, I mean, you know, we all do it. And here's the thing, we all do it. You know, you've got a show, you've got an upcoming
Yeah.
show, boom.
Yeah, I gotta
You know,
do it.
that-
Yeah, I gotta
you've
promote.
monetized it or commodified it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I do it with my personal business. So yeah, I think it's just part of it now. I think that we're getting to where people are kind of turning into their own little businesses.
Right.
Their own little, you know, each person now is it seems like we're kind of getting away from, you know, I haven't worked in an office in 7 years.
Uh-huh.
You know, and so, and I think and I see a lot of my friends are kind of gravitating to that or going that way and doing their own thing. And I think that slowly those profiles are starting to actually have a real value, but not only at the Kim Kardashian level, but, you know, even at even at our level.
Well, I think, yeah, what seems to be happening slowly is the traditional office work culture system is becoming obsolete. You
Yeah.
know, like, I mean, they're already farming out. There's no real employees anymore at these corporations. They're all freelancers. You know, they're all independent
Right.
contractors anyways. So it's you know, they don't want to give you benefits. They want you to work. They want you to work the 40 hours without giving you the benefits. They want you to act like you're their employee without actually being their employee,
Right.
so they could let you go to a moment's
Right.
notice.
Right.
And that you have no recourse for anything. And if you really, this is because I just got let go from this job where I was sitting in an office, and half the time sitting in that office, I was thinking about how I didn't need to be in this office. There really was no reason. It was all, I could do everything on the internet.
Sure.
There's no reason. They're just forcing me to be here because they want me here.
Control.
Yeah, exactly. And it's control in the face of, if you really think about it, limited mortality. Like, that's time I'm not getting back.
Right.
That's my time. I'm getting closer to death just because they want me to in this room. Not only that, we have shooter drills at these places. There's this place.
See, here's the thing. You know, here's the thing about that is here's the thing. That's why I'll never be able to go back to an office again, because if I was ever at a place, I was gonna do a WeWork type thing. I was gonna get an office in one of those places, and it was downtown, and it was one of those things. And I went in and they wanted to see my ID, and I was kind of uncomfortable with that because, like, why does the lobby of this building need my ID? Mm-hmm. And he says, like, it's because of, like, terrorism and shit. And I was like, and it made me think for a minute, and it was one of those things like, I didn't really want this WeWork. I didn't really want this WeWork that bad.
Right. To
be a part of some kind of terrorist thing.
Right.
This, whatever it is.
Or the system.
So my thing is, like, if I went to an office job and they could show it one, like, hey, we're gonna have an active shooter drill on Thursdays. Like, Wednesday's gonna be my last day.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in a building or in a place that feels the need to walk me through a scenario in which I'm very much going to die, that seems like a situation I need to extract myself out of. Why keep myself there? There's not enough, they're not paying me enough for that, no matter what I'm doing for them.
But not everybody is as freed from the matrix as you are. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we all go through this.
Baby, I want to keep the ride going.
No, I got you. I mean, the thing is, like, yeah, we were all sort of shown this government mandated video from Homeland Security, and it was now you can imagine if you've ever been at the DMV or in jury duty where they make you watch a video, it's like how shitty a state made video is. You know what I'm saying? It's like a terrible video. It's a terrible video.
And we're in the movie capital of the world. We can't get that right.
Well, no, but I'll tell you what. Even though the whole thing was shitty production value wise, the situation itself was still terrifying. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even have real firearms. They just kind of acted it out, and it was just a man showing up to a lobby with a backpack, whips out a shotgun, blah, goes after the security guard first, and then just starts stalking the hall. And you're like, oh, God. And you're like, yeah, it could happen at any time. And their only suggestion is run, hide, or fight. There you go. That's it. And you're like, that's it? Yeah, that's it. That's all you got for us? Yeah, that's it. You run, then hide, then fight. Like, okay. They're like, if you need
that is odd. That is so unsettling.
It really, isn't it? And then
so unsettling.
And then that's it. They're like, goodbye. And then the reason there were shooter drills is we learned that Tinder, the fucking going back to online dating, Tinder's on the 3rd floor of our building, and they were getting these fucking threats, shooting threats from probably some fucking incel retards or something. You know what I mean? But like, probably just some guy who was like, I can't take it anymore. But they were getting. So it was so that's really what this whole thing was about. It was about threats to Tinder, and then we were all mandated. It was mandated by law to give us these drills that did nothing. They basically just scared the shit out of us, and then reminded us that
that's like really. I mean, if your whole thing is to tell me the 3 things that I'm probably that's kind of built in. You know, that's built into being a human.
Yeah.
Or being alive.
Right.
You know, those are
it's your survival mechanism.
Yeah.
That's what you should rely on.
Yeah. He's like, you know what you don't need to just tell. You don't need to do that. I don't need a video for that. We don't need to spend money on that. We don't. You know what? You know what you could do? You could give me a memo and say, hey, you know what? Tinder's upstairs. They piss some people off.
Yeah,
keep your head on a swivel.
or yeah.
Cool. I don't need you to build me all up to show me some shit that I already know how to do.
Or this is a great case for us working at home. Like I just say, well, I don't see the reason.
Yeah, like I said, if I worked at a place and they said, we're going to have an active shooter drill on this day, I'm leaving that place. There's no.
Yeah.
Then why put yourself? I don't know.
Exactly.
Crazy.
Well, the
That's
thing about
nuts.
offices, though, statistically, I think the people who do commit that kind of violence in offices are the people who used to work there. You know what I mean? 'Cause they're actually the ones with the grievances. And I think it actually does speak to fucking office culture is poison, man. It's like it really poisons a lot of people, and you're all kind of in this factory kind of situation. You have these meetings, these hour-long meetings where nothing actually happens and you're just kind of all there,
right?
It's a weird it's an exercise in conformity. It's an exercise in you
just gotta wonder if that plays into just kind of how people just I don't know, but if it seems like this to you, and maybe it's just as I get older this seems to be the case, is it seems like more and more people are a lot more miserable than it used to be.
Yeah.
Maybe not as hopeful as they once were. And you got to wonder if it's finally taking a toll on us as people. Like where people are just so profoundly going against the grain of what their human experience is supposed to be.
I think
so. They're nothing that they're doing is providing them any kind of real stimulation. Everything is profoundly fake and profoundly put upon them. They've been told these are the things that are important, and these are the mile markers that you've got to hit. And they just chase those mile markers that they just forgot along the way to have the human experience.
I think so.
And I think with their heads.
I remember reading this book. I can't remember what it was called. Babbitt, maybe. It was just Sinclair Lewis. Upton Sinclair. No, not Upton Sinclair. That was The Jungle. Basically, this book was it was a fiction book, but it was about a guy in the turn of the 20th century, so right before the Roaring 20s. And that was the first time there were department stores, the rise of advertising and newspapers, the sort of rise of the commercial middle class, whatever. And the book was essentially about this middle-aged just guy, white, normal dude with a family, and the sort of banality of his existence and the meaninglessness of just his wife going shopping and the society stuff and this, you know what I mean? And so it was so that's sort of it's not as bad as it now, but that's kind of the underpinnings of what you're talking about, this sort of materialism taking over most aspects of life, especially middle class life, where there's no more, because it used to be either religion or national. It used to be some kind of value we all placed our sort of all our eggs in and said we believe in this. And I think a lot of people point to maybe, they could say it was Nixon that eroded sort of our faith in government and the idea of, it was the world wars that it sort of undermined our faith in the ideas that there were just wars and that there was, that there was good and evil out there. The complexity of the post-atomic age where we nuked people, and then we were able to nuke the entire world, where we just really put everything into question. What does it all mean? If we can do this, and should we even fucking do this? And then when we got faced in the 70s, I think, with the climate stuff, where we're our industrial society seems to be changing the way the Earth is, the climate patterns are, and maybe we should be concerned about that. And I feel like somewhere in the 80s, we just said, fuck all that. And we're doubling down on money. It was the me generation. See, the 80s. So I feel like the 80s is very fascinating to me because Carter put up solar panels in the White House, and then when Reagan came in, he ripped them off. And to me, that's a perfect metaphor for what we did as a society, right? Where we were we looked it right in the eye, and we just said,
"Well, didn't
we
just see the same thing just happen basically right now? Didn't the current administration roll back a whole bunch of the previous administration's climate change?
It's no different. No different.
That's the same exact thing with that is essentially them ripping up the ripping up the solar panel, so to speak.
So I feel like we can trace
it's still
this
going on.
Well, we can trace this back to, I think, that rise of that right, whatever that it's not just the right. It was this whole country. Honestly, I think was war weary from Vietnam. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it was the 70s was a disaster economically.
Right.
We got punked in Iran with the hostage thing, and everybody was like, oh, you know, like, and Reagan, they just needed a strong man, just like Trump did now. Like they wanted a strong man to come and be like, come on, we got this, guys. We're America, and we just need to make money and fucking, and we bought it. That's what everybody bought into. My dad was a Reagan Republican. He fucking, you know, it was all about the stock market, real estate, all the stuff that crashed like 20 years later, right? Like that sort of doubling down on wealth and materialism as this focal point for meaning, I think, is what puts us here now, where 30 years from that, we're like, oh man, we still feel pretty empty. It's and the world's gonna end. Like,
sure.
We have all this cool stuff, but we've got nothing to show for changing the environment or really stopping to kill each other. We're like really good at killing each other. Like if you wanted to kill somebody on the other side of the planet, we could do that. We could do that. Like we could do that in like 72
really,
hours.
The question is, really the question is not. It's not that. It's now a question of when do you need it done.
Too.
When you need it done. It's not a question of can we do it.
Yeah.
Of course we can do
yeah.
it. It's just a matter of now it's when.
Yeah, I got a cousin. He's a captain in the army, and he's like, he's in charge of a division or whatever, and he was like, that's just my job. Where they're like, at any moment's notice, you got to be able to take these 5,000 guys and these vehicles anywhere in 72 hours. That's just they're ready. They're like fucking, which is fucking. And on one hand, I'm like, dude, that's fucking awesome. Like, because he's, you know, like I know people who serve. They're all really awesome people. They're like nice people. You know what I mean? Individually, they're fucking awesome people. And it's not their job to question. You know what I mean? Like it's not a soldier's job to be like, why should we? They do what they're told. But it's the motherfuckers that are telling them what to do that are corrupt. You know what I mean? Like it's the people putting them in danger that are, and ultimately that's why it's a civilian government, right? It's a civilian military. We're supposed to put those fuckers in check. We're supposed to be like, hey, why are you sending our boys over there? Like when there's but I just always think of what is the cost of just being able to mobilize all these motherfuckers and send them anywhere. I mean, it's sort of like,
I'd say,
what do you think? Throw out a figure. What would you say?
$3,700.
Oh,
37.
Hey, that's reasonable. I feel
it's the U.S. government.
That's
they're
it.
They're gonna get price breaks. It's gonna be a piece of cake.
If anything,
and we own all the stuff.
Right.
That's really just a fuel.
There's no
cost.
cost.
That's really just a fuel cost.
Fuel.
Really.
Yeah, it's just gas. Yeah, it's just gas.
We own the people.
Exactly.
We own the equipment.
We own
the air.
We also own the weapons on both sides.
Right.
Yeah, the weapons they're shooting at us, we sold them those weapons.
You ever see those dudes that can play chess with themselves?
That's us. Yeah, we are we are at war with ourselves, and that's what's keeping the entire economy going. And that's, I think,
maybe losing.
Hey, but that's good actually, because then we'll come back. That nothing, stirs up patriotism more than being the underdog. You could finally be like, you know what? We're the rebels. We're not the empire, guys.
Joe could have taken a nasty.
Oh man, I didn't. We've been talking for 20 minutes. Didn't introduce my guest. Everyone joining me this episode is the founder, CEO, Mutant Capitalist, Rob Walker. Joining me, Rob. I met Rob. Surprisingly, he's not a comedian. Most of my guests have been comedians, but he's not. He is. I guess he's an entrepreneur, really. I mean, he has his hats, many different hats on. His fingers in a lot of different pies. He's done a lot of different things. He more ways than one. And the way I met Rob was I answered an ad because I was interested in doing weed stuff, making weed videos, and then I ended up working with him to make these product videos which
turned out great. He did a great job on that.
Thanks, man. For I guess like weed, not weed itself, which would have been awesome. If we were just making product videos for weed, that would have been cool. But it was for like paraphernalia, mostly, bongs and pipes and all that stuff. Anyways, Rob also is, to me, somebody I've looked at as a model of like, what I want to do with taking charge of the finances in my life or just work like my way. I mean, obviously I want to be a comic and that's what I want to do. If I could make a living doing that, then I'd be happy. But until then, I have to have a job, and jobs suck. Like if you have no connection
Right.
to what you want to do. So one of the things I do, I'm connected, to marijuana. I'm a huge advocate for marijuana and whatever the sort of increasing legalization and the impact of it on society, and also like the way, actually, my real interest in it is undoing the sort of 100 years of propaganda that that we've been put under in the way we view marijuana.
Right.
People still to this day are like, "Oh, you smoke weed?"
Yeah.
And like,
sure.
Doesn't it
Sure.
make you dumb? Or they're super misinformed about weed. Yet they'll fucking pop a Xanax without a question.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll pop
Exactly.
a fucking some oxys or fucking. They'll pop those pills because the doctor says it's okay.
Yep.
And meanwhile, they're like, there's something wrong with weed and stuff. There's still a stigma. And I think a lot of that is the language we use. A lot of that is...
it's just baked in. I mean, we're talking about kids. I mean, you're talking about people that are in power now, came up during the, just say no.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the DARE programs that came, so a lot of this stuff's been baked in. So it's going to take a couple of generations, for it to kind of pass. And I mean, and that's my generation.
It's me too.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's us.
I was a DARE
and
kid.
So, and so we've changed our minds.
Right.
And so, and it's just going to take some time. It's going to take some more education. And I think that it's just, I mean, it's going to get legalized nationally. It's going to be on the national stage.
I mean, it's inevitable.
Election. Yeah, it's because the train's already moving. You know what? Colorado just crossed over $1 billion in taxes collected.
Right.
And so, you know what? The other states are not going to give up that revenue, and they're going to want in on that action. And the train's rolling. It's just once again now it just comes a matter of what order are the states going to happen,
right?
And so and the moment that the federal government loosens up the banking regulations, that's the primary thing that's holding everything back. People can't control the money.
What do you think? What do you think they're going to do, or what is sort of going to be done? I guess it's going to be on a state-by-state level of all the people in jail for possession.
Illinois just threw up a great model for that. They did. They just passed legalization, but they had a very heavy social component to it, and that heavy social component had it to where people that were convicted of and I'm basically people connected with minor marijuana crimes were going to be able to be let out and their records expunged, and I don't know to what degree all that is. I don't know if it's associated with other things, but it looked like a pretty good model. So I think it's gonna come like that. I mean, California just erased a bunch of debt or a bunch of convictions on people. So. I think they gotta let those people out of jail.
I know. I mean, they have to, but
to do that.
I don't know. I think I can see, from the other side. Like if I was, say, a private prison contractor and the majority of my prisoners were in there for drug offenses and mostly for marijuana and possession of it, I would be thinking, hey, this is my whole workforce that you're taking. I'm going to lose my entire workforce. And how am I going to meet these quotas I need to meet for these sunglasses that I'm making? Like, how am I going to possibly, what about me, the small businessman? What am I going to,
job creator.
Yeah, I mean, so I understand because they're one of the top lobbies blocking legalization.
Of course
They're the ones that are most threatened. Them and prison guards and pharmaceuticals. So then I wonder. The thing I'm wondering is like, well, we gotta criminalize something else. Then what can we criminalize that we can throw a lot of people in jail for, just like marijuana? Like that's the one thing I'm like wondering, because they have all these jails. Are they gonna close them down or are they gonna fill them up? Like that's and thus far the drug war seems to have been operating really to fill up a lot of these prisons.
Sure.
And now if we start dismantling that, what are we, I really wonder like what's in store. I mean, I honestly, I feel like they should just tear them down. There shouldn't be this many prisons if we don't need them. But is that in this age of crony capitalism?
I don't know. It seems like we're just really punish happy.
Oh yeah,
and I mean everywhere.
Oh yeah,
we're just quick to punish everybody. Everybody's got to get punished for everything, and it's kind of out of control. And you start to see just the sheer number of people that are in prison. It's staggering.
It's more than China. I mean, it's more than all these
it's,
countries we say are brutal dictatorships.
Yeah.
We have more people in jail for smoking a plant, like not even
it's-
for
it's-
murder, you know, like that, or like talking, not even speaking against the government, which I guess on some level you could be like, okay, I guess, you know, but this is for weed, you know, this is literally for weed. So, and we are the freest, supposedly the freest nation in the world. That's our contradiction, right? The brutal contradiction of our free society is that we've jailed all these people just for smoking weed, you know, like, which to me seems unconstitutional. There's nothing in the Constitution. I mean, we needed a constitutional amendment just for alcohol, but for some reason for weed, it was fine.
But
like
you know,
that,
the other, yeah, you're right. But then there's the other side of this that somebody had mentioned to me, and I thought it was an interesting take, which was, you know, the other part of that, the other side of that coin is. The other side of that coin is for a lot of stuff is that these systems are in place because people can't be honest. You know what I mean? Like that's the flip side of that. The flip side of human nature. For some reason, we've gotten to where we're not honest about things. So you know, it becomes this thing where like I've been had, I'm upset, and somebody needs to be punished.
Right.
That's kind of the process. And
I wonder if it's also like our very specific Puritan, you know, like the roots of American culture are really this sort of puritanical kind of, you know, that's why we're so prudish about sex. Even though we're a mix of many different cultures, the dominant thing is still to be prudish about sex. It's still people who can't even say vagina or whatever. You know what I mean? They can't even use the term.
Dare you?
Yeah, they're like hoo-has. Like news people go like and down there. You know what I mean? And it's like grown adults. Like you can't. Are you serious? You're like really? Like and this is really America. You know, other countries they show sex on screen. It's totally fine that everybody's an adult. But something about America, there is this interesting sort of like it's like, in fact, getting high, what's wrong with getting high is not necessarily the harm, it's the getting high itself. It's a pleasure, the pleasure being derived. That's why when people pitch CBD, they're like, it's the stuff that doesn't get you high. Like, see, because the getting high is the devil. That's the bad part. You know, but we can isolate the good stuff. You know, like it's this strange sort of like something about pleasure is sinful, you know, like pleasure, you know, like we should all be like, and it's a very like northeastern kind of like put your head down and just go to work and don't complain, and like you know, it's that sort of mentality that I feel like is really ingrained in all of America, fascinatingly. You know, and so I think it's the same thing. It's punish it, you know, put him in the stockades, punish it, you know, like it's a very interesting. That's why I think it's fascinating that America seems to always be on the precipice of some kind of like either fascist or kind of like, you know, like where the people start like rounding people up and having struggle sessions and things like that. You know, like we're like right on the brink of that, you know, but we never quite get there. But I feel like it's always dangerous. It is very and in the past, if you think about it,
isn't that life?
Like
if you look at the animal kingdom.
Right.
The animal kingdom is like that. They're always on high alert and all that. Now, I don't think we have to be.
Well,
but I think maybe we create. I think that we kind of need those.
I think it's both. I think the nature is both competitive and cooperative.
Right.
Right. Is that nature isn't 100% competitive because there's homeostasis achieved by animals. You know,
fair.
like
that's a good point.
You know, I think the thing about human beings is that we, because in nature the value is survival. That's ultimately the value. But in humanity, we like things like wealth have overtaken survival, so that some people will. So essentially, when you have let's say you have a company and you put out a drug and the drug ends up killing a lot of people, you break out the accountants and do the math, right? You don't go, oh, that's wrong. You bust out the accountants and go,
so
how much does it cost to kill these people versus us? You know, you have to. That's
how much is my arm worth?
Yeah, it's essentially that, and that's I think neither. It's not a good thing or a bad thing in the face of the system itself. The system is blind, right? But as human beings, we have to put a moral judgment on that. It's like, should we do that? So that's why, like, I actually am the older I get, I feel like I am becoming maybe slightly more conservative or libertarian in my thinking, right? Like where I believe that maybe the state isn't necessarily the best entity to get into our lives and fix stuff. You know what I mean?
Well,
like maybe
you're
it's
at the
not,
place
like,
now where these people that are now your peers.
right. Yeah, they
And
can have power.
and you know what? It's like, like my friends are all fucking idiots.
It's like, oh,
I have
shit.
seen my friends do some fucked up shit, and so I know that they've done some fucked up shit, and now I don't trust them either.
Yeah, I don't want them in charge of everything. Yeah, are you kidding? Like, I don't want that. It's like,
Yes.
But then on the other hand, I'm also aware of the fact that like people unchecked, I don't think can necessarily be trusted. Like you're saying, right? Like there's like it can't just be completely some kind of anarcho-syndicalist libertarian paradise, because I feel like someone's gonna try to get over on somebody else. Like and at that level, how do you decide stuff like if you can't afford healthcare, does that mean you're asked out? Like what does that mean under that system? You know what I mean? If it's a purely materialist system, that means if you're too poor, you can't make it. Like, and then that's it. And that just seems like that doesn't seem right. It seems like we should be able to have some kind of social welfare, right? And the only way to administer that seems to be some kind of state. It can't be a private company, right? Like, I mean, you know, so then I feel like that's the paradox we're in, where it's like you can recognize the dangers of overreaching state, of a state that's too big, but then you can also see the dangers of the absence of a state and people left unchecked. So you got to find what that middle ground is.
But also, isn't the government? I mean, I don't know. It seems to me that the government that we have right now is perfect. It's perfectly us.
Right.
It's inept.
Oh,
It's fighting with itself.
Oh,
It can't get anything done.
Oh, yeah.
It can't move an inch.
But it's getting rich somehow.
You know, yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I think it is, and I think that the only time that that's going to change is when we change the values of us. Changing,
I
and
agree.
we say, you know what, we're going to give this value of human life thing a shot. You know, and we're going to say, you know what, if you need food, we've got food.
Oh, like we
you know,
need
and when we say we got food from wherever you are.
Right.
Come, we have food.
Like we've got,
you need vaccinations, we got you. You need healthcare, we got you. Like and nothing's going to change until we actually view the human life as valuable. Because we don't. I mean, we like to say that we do, and we'll sit and play those little games with ourselves to say, we got to take care of these people. Well, we need to take care of all of them. Come on, let's get it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to admit to ourselves is that we create a hierarchy of life. It's not that we don't really truly value all life. We actually value some more than others. Like we do that all the time, even in just like what you decide to eat, right? Like what even just in the dietary choices you have, just everything just by being alive, you have to consume something. Something has to die for you.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's just nature, right? That's just that.
I mean, right.
Right. Yeah. But I think on the other hand, it is, let's just say for some reason we stopped war and took all that money and we're like, hey, what if we tried to feed everyone? We actually could.
Yeah.
We actually could. I mean, if you could get a guy to go kill someone in 72 hours anywhere around the world, why couldn't you go get him a sandwich? You know what I'm saying? Why couldn't you go? You don't have to shoot him. Like you could go over there and give him some food. Like we could just as easily be doing that. Like so I think it's in our means. It's just not a value, right? Like we don't, that's not,
right.
Until that somehow makes us a bunch of money. Like we're like, we don't see any reason to do that. But I think what we're dealing with is this inherent contradiction of like when Obama was elected, I remember I was in New York, I was in fucking Harlem. It was amazing. There's tons of black people everywhere. They're so happy. Everybody was happy. There was dancing on the street. Fucking everybody was so happy because it was like this hopeful thing, of this. We had a black president. Bush is gone. We're like, yeah, we're doing it, And in some ways, I think the hope for America was that like, look, this is us. This is us, not the last guy who went and killed a million Iraqis. Like this guy, cool black dude, and he's looking at him. He's cool. He's well spoken. He fucking cares, whatever, right? But I think just as much as that guy was us, Trump's us too. Trump is exactly us. Like that's us. Like we are fucking. We are reality TV driven. Fucking pussy grabbing. Fucking and shooting. We'll shoot people left and right. No one will care. We fucking and honestly, we just talk shit. We talk a lot of shit. And we're the best at it. We're the best at talking shit, and that's us. And I think that it's the collective horror that the country had at seeing Donald Trump is actually the horror of somebody seeing themselves in the morning, like the morning after, like a one night stand or something, or the morning after, like just doing something foul and crazy, and you look yourself in your mirror, you're like, oh no, that's not me. And I feel like that's Trump, that's us, that, and in a lot of ways, I prefer the ugly reality to the pretty lie, I think
that's fair. That's fair.
In some ways, because at least to me, when we have a cool president, we bomb the fuck out of everyone, and it's cool. Like, everybody's cool with it. Nobody thinks it's bad. Because it's like, oh, he's cool. We probably have a good reason, right? Like, we're all go. At least when, like, the shitty guy does it, the guy we hate, when he does it, everything he does, we're like, what's he doing?
But think about that, and think about how think about that. Is that depending on which team you're on, it's okay. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Depending on who, basically, if my team does it, yay.
Right.
If that team does it, boo.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nothing to do with the thing.
Holy shit, you actually have said that in some instances it's okay just to straight murder people.
It's hypocrisy.
It's like, holy, that's, you somehow they've got us, they actually got us to say that our morals are highly flexible.
Right. No, and that we're okay with it. Well, here's the thing. We've been using this Orwellian doublespeak for a long time, like the idea of sanctions. When we say we want to sanction people, what we don't actually tell people what that means is that we're blockading food. So that we're actually starving people. We're starving people.
Is that what that means?
That's what sanctions are. We're
know
stopping.
that.
So imagine if that happened to us. Imagine if they sanctioned us. So they blocked our ports. They didn't let imports come in. You know what I mean? Like, we would call that war.
I thought they were like economic sanctions. I thought they were like specific to like.
No.
We're not going to give you any steel.
No. Sanctions are like, so there's a very famous interview where Madeleine Albright during the Clinton years, they did sanctions on Iraq, right? They did some air bombing and then sanctions on Iraq. And the sanctions, there's some fucking study that said 500,000 kids starved to death because of these sanctions. That there's a fact that they had 500,000 kids in Iraq starved to death.
500,000 children.
500,000 children starved to death because there wasn't enough food. And they were Barbara Walters. Somebody was asking her on the news, Madeleine Albright, like, is it 500,000 kids died, way more than Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined? Was it worth it? And she's like, yeah. She basically goes, it was worth, I think it was worth it for what would. So that's us, right? That's during that's before the Republicans. That's Democrat. That's the good guys, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying?
That's Clinton, right?
Yeah, that's under Clinton, and that's not even a hot war. You know what I'm saying? That's just what we can do.
War.
Yeah, that's what we can do economically, right? So that's why I feel like, I
had no idea, man.
Yeah, the whole idea that we're a pro-life, we respect the sanctity of it. It's not true. We don't, because why are we starving kids? Like, we're punishing children to prove a point? Because all our sanctions are always for behavior. We're like, oh, we don't like that behavior, so we put sanctions on you. But what we don't really say is it's a siege, essentially. It's an economic siege, and you're going to starve. Your kids will starve now. So that's us. We're essentially punishing civilians for whatever the government did. And I think, like, if that was reversed and done to us, we would fucking cry bloody murder. Like that, we would declare war. Because imagine your own kids. Imagine telling an American family your kids are starving, because they cut off our fucking.
Don't we do that all the time when we try to take away the food programs and welfare programs? I mean, isn't that what we're doing?
But I'm just saying, imagine if a foreign power did that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we would go nuts. We would go apeshit. Like, we would. I mean, so that's the whole thing. I mean, when it comes to internally, like, there's no clean water in cities, and kids are starving left and right. Kids are the most impoverished group of people in this country. We don't care about the kids. Like, we don't. It's all lip service. A lot of this stuff of like, think of the children and think of that. But when it comes to kids who don't have parents, like, they're screwed. Wards of the state or whatever. Like, the worst off in this country are orphan kids, essentially. They don't, and they have no political power. Right. Like, they can't vote, so nobody cares about them. Right. Like,
and they're just a burden.
Yeah, exactly. They're a tax burden. Yeah. Right. It's so I think that's.
And once again, that's viewing them. How do we view that human life?
Exactly.
It's not valuable.
If one life is valuable, then all lives should be. And we should. And I think I think what the fascinating thing is that the argument is always about like, oh, how are we going to pay for this? Like, how would we possibly pay for this? But we never ask that question when we're going to bomb some kid across the world. We're never like, how do we pay for this missile? Like, you know, like one missile is like $100,000 or some shit. You know, like those things aren't cheap. You know, those things are super expensive, and we seem to have tons of money for that. That's cool, but when it comes to just, you know, fixing stuff, I don't know. So I feel like, you know, the one thing that does give me hope is Denver and Oakland legalizing mushrooms.
What?
Oakland actually
dope,
legalized DMT and ayahuasca too. Like, so
Ibogaine
too. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think the psychedelic, if a psychedelic revolution comes, that's the kind of shift we need in consciousness to be like, dude, we can't keep doing this war thing, like this war, because that's us. Like, we are the number one arms dealer in the world. Like, over 50% of the armaments sold are U.S. So it's, you know, that's our game, that's our market, you know. And I think that until we change that, there's a great case for there to be perpetual war. Because that's our economy.
You know what? Here's the thing: is if they're just going to keep us in a perpetual state of war, I think they just do need to go ahead and just, you know, legalize all the
drugs.
psychedelics.
Yeah, just all the drugs.
You know what? Just
let them all.
let me just. You know what? I'm happy.
Yeah.
Just sitting over here.
Yeah.
Minding my own business with my own snacks. You know.
Well, I think for me, psychedelics. First of all, drugs is the perfect remedy for the war on drugs, right? Like, I think if anything, psychedelics is what undid a lot of the propaganda for me. To be like, oh man, they're just lying.
Same here.
This whole time. What else are they lying about? You know, that's why so many conspiracy theorists like kind of stem off from the stoners and the drug, you know, because that's when you start questioning stuff. So it makes total sense. But I think when it starts happening, maybe like at the city level and maybe like a larger state level, and you know,
well, I mean, hasn't it always been said that, you know, real governing happens at the local level?
I think so.
And
yeah,
I think that's where most of the things that is going to impact you the most happens. You know, if they're going to, you know, if they start, you know, if you are a business owner, you know, and they start diverting traffic, you know, away from, they're proposing to divert traffic away from your business, you need to, you know, you can get involved.
Yeah.
You know, you can get involved. You can go visit with your, you know, your city council person and say, hey, you know, I would very much like for you to not do that, and here's why. Right. You know, and so on. And I think that's that governing that happens, you know, that really happens to you. You know, how much does it cost you for a speeding ticket? Right. You know, that has an impact on your life. It's really, I think it's kind of hard to understand how the president has an impact on your life. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like that's so abstract. I mean, he does these things, but what's the impact going to be today? Unless I work for the federal government, where he's like, you know, eliminated my job. But I mean, as a citizen, it doesn't. The real governing happens here, right? And I think that goes back to the whole marketing thing, where it's the idea of this figurehead or whatever. It actually plays on, you know, it plays on our like those Jungian archetypes and the sort of the Freudian sort of like the idea of like the father. You know, you got the archetype of the father, but then you also have this like this idea that there are these unconscious urges that we're all kind of like acting out through this person. You know, and I think that's why the national thing is so captivating for everybody, because it operates on these like sort of primal triggers that we have, which is what all advertising basically is, right? Is basically psychological exploitation, right? Like for like a behavioral outcome essentially. Right. And so I think that like we've gotten really good at being like, look at this, like this is the circus. And then meanwhile we ignore like the bottom level, you know, the thing that's really important. Because I couldn't tell you who my congressman is or who like the fucking city council. Really? Yeah. I mean, I just moved too. So like, but you know, like mine's Marquise Harris Dawson.
Nice. I think that's actually more. That is more important. That's where we actually can affect more change.
Like, you know? with him, like I follow him on all my social media. I follow him. He's really actively involved in our neighborhood specifically. Oh, okay. Yeah. And I mean, he does seem like very approachable. You know, so I have no need to. I'm happy, you know, with his job. He seems like he's doing a pretty good job. There's no crime out here today. So I'm happy for today. Yeah. You know, but I feel like he's more accessible. Like, I feel like if I had a problem, there just feels like there's that. And maybe I'm bullshitting myself, which is fine. But, you know, here's the thing. I know that if I have a national problem, like, hey, I have a really big problem with us flying drones and dropping bombs, Mr. President, That's not that's that's like shooting a BB gun or shooting a train with a BB gun.
Right. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
But but however, Karen Bass, she's my representative in Congress. I kind of feel like if I could, I could send her I'm on her mailing list and all that bullshit.
Right.
Say, hey, at least I feel like if I send an email and say, hey, I would prefer that you vote this way on this issue.
Right.
That's it. That's my 2 cents.
Right.
I do that from time to time on certain issues, and she's usually pretty much in line with my shit anyway. So, but that's about as high as it goes for me. It feels like I have to if I feel confident locally.
I feel the same too. I feel like more and more I'm checking out of the national stage. I don't care. It just seems like a giant circus, and it just seems like they're just bullshitting us. Literally, it seems like they're just like polls this and the debates and polls and who's it going to be, and we're like it's going to be this, and then we're like no, it's not.
What's
Sorry.
The last
like
law
what,
that you remember they passed? Like what's the last law that you really I don't even know the last law that we passed like nationally that
Obamacare. It's like the last thing I could think of because they're
that's
still
a
trying to
long
undo
time.
it. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there have been some, but I can't.
But I mean, big national laws.
They passed
that
that you can't be anti-Semitic thing. After Ilhan Omar said that thing about AIPAC, they passed a little resolution saying we shouldn't be anti-Semitic. So they did that, which I mean, I guess everybody was for. I mean, nobody, I don't know who would be against that, but like, so like that's the level of what they're accomplishing right now. Is that they tried to pass the War Powers Act, where they would stop Trump from continuing the war in Saudi Arabia, but then he vetoed it. So now it's back in Congress. So we'll see. So they're basically having a little tiff over who gets to approve the war. But when you think about it, come on, Saudi Arabia. So many people are in bed with Saudi Arabia and our government. You know what I mean? Like, and nobody's calling that into question. Nobody's talking about that collusion. Like, nobody's talking. It's Israeli, the lobby. Every country's a fucking lobby here because why wouldn't you?
Right.
Why wouldn't you? If you could go in and lobby the American government with money, why would you? They're for sale. So fuck it.
Yeah, that seems like that's exactly what embassies are.
Yeah.
Or like it's like the lobbying. It's like the lobbying arm of the United States government and vice versa.
I think that's all. It's essentially, when it comes down to it, all of our relationships with these other countries come down to some economic.
Yeah.
It's either strategic, but underlying that is always economics. I think, and I think that's the bottom line.
How do you unwind that though? At some point, I mean, that here's the thing. There's just no way that's sustainable.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I think
at some point we're all going to have to I think
don't know, some kind of collapse is inevitable. People are saying I think it may not be a catastrophic global collapse, but there has to be some undoing of this massive. Even just if you think about industrial agriculture, right? Like it can't sustain itself. You know what I mean? Like this thing can't. But how are we going to feed millions of people? So at some point, something's got to give, and if we don't figure out the big problem, how to feed all the people, we're going to have another problem of the thing collapsing before we figure that out, and everybody's starving, and then eventually we'll figure it out.
Right.
But I think that's the issue that we have when it comes to war, when it comes to economics, everything. It's like we're operating on, we're just learning now how to operate on a global scale. And in order to do that efficiently, we have to break down some of the larger structures that we built up. We need new structures, but we have no idea what they are just yet.
Right.
And that's the sort of, I feel like that's kind of why you hear, everybody, this common sentiment is like, this is the craziest time ever, and we're in such a crazy time, and whatever. And if you really think about it realistically, I would rather be alive now than like 100 years ago.
Fuck yes.
I would rather not die from an infection.
How much cool shit we have.
Yeah, I mean,
man, we are just this side of space travel,
dude.
Like commercial space. We are just this side of it. We're selling seats for space travel.
Every single one of us eats like a Roman emperor. You know what I'm saying? Like,
daily.
Fucking. You know what I mean? Like
daily.
There's no way we could do what we do now, like as a common, like a person. You know what I mean? Like,
have you seen the internet?
Oh Jesus
There's
Christ!
a lot of cool stuff on there.
Yeah,
they didn't have that 100 years ago.
So I mean, granted, it's really shitty for some people, but it's really great for others. But for me personally, I'm super lucky that I'm here in America in the 21st century. But I think the thing is, what we are on is the precipice of a paradigm shift. We're in the middle of one, actually, probably. You know, because I think human lives are too short to measure the scale of these changes. You know, it goes across generations. So we're sort of like in that. Because we're both analog and digital, you know, we have that pre-digital thing, but we're, you know, but soon we'll be dead and nobody will remember.
That's true.
That era, you know, that sort of the horse era, you know, like when everybody rode horse, like we weren't alive for that, you know. So I think it's.
I never thought about it that way, man.
Yeah, think how long horses were around, dude. Way longer than fucking. You know what I mean? Like
no, just the fact that at some point, very very soon, there will be somebody around that won't remember a rotary dial phone.
Oh yeah.
You know,
or a vinyl record, or understand
or
that
not
like
having caller ID.
Yeah, or mail, like physical mail.
Right.
They'll be like, "Why would you do that?" Paper, you write on the paper and put it in a box, and then some dude comes.
So wasteful.
Yeah, you just killed
savages.
You killed all those trees for that, like
savages.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be seen as barbaric.
Yeah,
you know? We'll be seen. But anyways, I think. We should wrap up here, but I mean, it's always fun talking to Rob. Rob, do you have anything you'd like to plug for the people, or a website, or anything? You know, like your company's website or anything like that.
You know what? I don't. I most of my business is B2B.
Aha.
So you know, I don't really I don't do with consumers that much. But if I get one free plug, I would say that if anybody ever gets a chance to go see Rogan live, you should absolutely positively do it. I've seen it. It's a great show.
Holy shit.
Highly, highly recommend it. That's my plug.
Oh, thanks,
I'm
dude.
plugging you, my friend.
Wow, that's
dope.
Oh, thanks, man. Rob came to see me do stand-up, and I didn't let him down. So, so if he kept following me every day, he probably wouldn't say this. But he caught me on a good night. So I think that's awesome. So thanks so much, Rob, for fucking talking with me. And, you know, fucking we're out here. I mean, you know what? I think if anything, like the fact that we're here, we're surviving, we're trying to live outside these structures, traditional structures, and we're doing it. That's, you know, that's a good sign. You know, it's like no one's trying to jail us or kill us just yet, you know, for going against the grain. And, you know, and I think it's the way of the future, you know, it's how it is.
I agree.
All right, man.